Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Monday, May 8th, 2023 meeting to order, Falls Church City Council meeting to order, and ask that you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Ms. Conley? Here. Mr. Duncan is absent for medical reasons. Ms. Hardy? Here. Ms. Leon?
Here.
Ms. Sean Siscott?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
And Mayor Tarter.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wonder who's going to move adoption of the meeting agenda. The honorary Phil Duncan motion.
I move to adopt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it.
I feel like since I'm sitting in his seat, that should be. That's fine. It's appropriate. Yeah.
Exactly.
That means you've probably read all the minutes too, right?
Yeah. All of them.
So our first proclamation is regarding, our first order of business is a proclamation declaring May 2023 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Month here in the City Falls Church. And I might ask the Vice Mayor if she'd like to go ahead and read the proclamation. Do you have,
I'd be glad to. Thank you.
yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders make up an important part of the city, bringing valuable cultural experiences, ideas, and practices that enrich and strengthen the fabric of our community. And whereas the City of Falls Church is proud to be home to many people of many cultures and countries that Asian American and Pacific Islander populations have ties to, including China, India, Japan, Laos, Pakistan, the Philippines, South Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam, among many other nations. And whereas the varying experiences of Asian Americans remind us of the opportunities and resources the city has to offer, as well as the issues we can improve on, from first-generation immigrants and asylum seekers who've worked to create a home in a new land, to established generations that seek to improve the quality of life and advocate for a better community. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander community members are some of the most active advocates of cultural preservation in the city, with Asian American community members leading the charge to support and maintain important local businesses, community spaces, and cultural touchstones in the region. And whereas businesses and organizations led by Asian community members line the heart of the city's downtown and comprise the Eden Center, one of the region's most popular commercial centers, drawing visitors to the city from across state and country borders. And whereas many of the contributions of the Asian community in Falls Church reflect the values the city holds, including resiliency and creativity seen in flourishing businesses, regional distinction demonstrated by popular annual events, and small-town character stemming from strong connections and a welcoming environment. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month celebrates the culture, history, and contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders.
Now, therefore, I, David Tarter, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the City of Falls Church, and call upon all to recognize the many contributions and achievements of the Asian and Pacific Islander Americans, and to support and visit the abundant variety of Asian-owned businesses and restaurants in the community. So I know we've got one representative from Eden Center who's got one of the best bakeries in town. I think it's Hung Bin. Is that how did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's one of my favorites, so thank you for joining us. I don't know if you'd like to say a few words, but we welcome you and all from the Eden Center and our thriving Vietnamese and Asian community.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Quang Le, and I'm the general manager for my family's business, Hung Bin Bakery and Deli at Eden Center. I want to thank the council members and the City of Falls Church for recognizing the contribution of Asian American in this community, but also a contribution through part of the continuing American story. We're no different from any other immigrant groups that came before us. In America, I think, is a nation of immigrants, and I think we're stronger and better because of it. And our story continues to be written, and we hope our contribution, our culture, our history would would add to this amazing fabric that is America.
Well, thank you very much. Very well said. Why don't you come forward and we'll give you this proclamation. You can take it back to Eden Center, and we'll get a photo maybe as well. So here's two in Vietnamese and one in English. And if you'd like, maybe turn around and we'll get a quick photo. All right, thank you, and I'll give you a pen. How about that? Thank you. Thanks very much. I'll see you back at the bakery. All right. And next up is a proclamation declaring May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Mr. Snyder, would you like to, I'm sorry, would you like to do that, Ms. Hiscott? Yes, okay. It's on the screen, too.
Whereas, according to the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, half of the population in the United States will experience some type of mental health challenge over the course of a lifetime. And whereas mental health challenges are one of the most common health conditions in the nation, as 2 in 5 adults report anxiety and depression, and 2 in 5 teens describe experiencing persistent sadness or hopelessness, exacerbated by social media, bullying, and gun violence. And whereas drug overdose deaths are also near record highs, and suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people, according to the Office of the White House. And whereas mental health challenges not only affect the individuals, but also those who care for and love the person facing the challenge. And whereas 1 out of every 24 Americans with a serious mental illness have difficulty functioning in everyday life, and, if left untreated, have life expectancies 25 years shorter than the general population. And whereas every day, millions of people face stigma related to mental health and may feel isolated and alone, going years before receiving any help. And whereas recovery can and does happen, and everyone should know that support and help is available regardless of any individual situation. And whereas creating a community where everyone feels comfortable reaching out for the support they deserve is crucial to ending the stigma around mental health. And whereas access to support and ending mental health stigma is of paramount importance. And whereas the City Council of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, wishes to enhance public awareness of mental health.
Now, therefore, I, David Tarter, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby recognize May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of Falls Church and call this observation to the attention of all. Is there anyone in the audience to receive this proclamation tonight? If not, we'll do it for our entire community. It's a serious issue that we all need to be aware of and to continue to work together to solve. Okay, our last proclamation is declaring May 7th through the 13th as Public Service Recognition Week, and Mr. Snyder is going to do the honor.
Whereas public servants work at the federal, state, county, and city levels to provide localities across the United States with the essential services they need to function. And whereas the work of public servants encompasses a wide variety of responsibilities, including promoting and maintaining public safety, educating our children, hosting community events, repairing and maintaining our streets, sewer systems, and public utilities, caring for vulnerable populations, promoting fairness and inclusion, protecting our natural environment, engaging with the public, and providing responsive customer service, all of which comes together to form a well-functioning, efficient, and effective system that meets the needs of the community. And whereas public servants turn our community dreams into a reality, making proposals and legislation into tangible outcomes through the policies, programs, and projects that they organize and execute. And whereas public servants are on the front line of emergencies, working round the clock to ensure the safety of the community and to facilitate its ability to function during times of difficulty. And whereas city and school employees always go the extra mile to meet the needs of the Falls Church community.
Now, therefore, I, David Tarter, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of May 7th through the 13th, 2023 as Public Service Recognition Week, and thank all public servants for contributing to making the City of Falls Church such a great place to live, work, learn, and play, and ask the public to join in recognizing and celebrating the city and schools' dedicated employees. I know we have some public service folks here in the audience. The room's full of them in some ways. Would you all like to just stand or maybe come forward and we'll hand you the proclamation and give you our hearty thanks.
Well, thank you, Mayor Tarter. And yeah, I think our tradition has been all federal, state, local public servants, as well as volunteers and community activists come forward to accept this resolution or proclamation.
All right, let's do it. Why don't we all come forward? And that would be not just city employees, but if there's any federal or state employees in the audience as well, please. Schools as well, yep. Come on down.
All school board chairs.
You guys work together very nicely. Thank you. I'll take a couple more. Very good. All right, thank you. Nick is going to do it. All right. One more. If I take them. Here, Nick. Just in time. Come on, here. Hold your smile for me. Just be careful. Oh, you over the wall. Push on in, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, how much is that for everybody?
I've got mine. You may need one. I have mine. It's on my bag.
All right, well, thank you all. We and City Council know the great work you do day in and day out. We hope our community appreciates and knows as well, because you all do a fantastic job for the city and to help make it such a wonderful place for us to live and be a part of. So thank you all for your contributions, and we greatly appreciate it. Let's go on to oaths of office. Madam Clerk, any oaths of office to administer?
Yes, we have Claire McCray for the Library Board of Trustees. Hello. So if you can raise your right hand. Do you, Claire McCray, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Library Board of Trustees according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for your...
All right, well, come on down. We'll give you a pen and we'll take a quick photo. How about that? And thank you for your service. All right, any other oaths of office, Madam Clerk? Well, looks like we got one more in the back.
Sure, come on up. Are you Russ? Oh, okay, great. And is your green light on the mic? Great. All right, are you ready? Raise your right hand. Do you, Russ Martin, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Arts and Humanities Council of Falls Church according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And your oath is done. You can serve on the Arts and Humanities Council.
All right, come on down. Let's give you our thanks as well. Maybe another pen. Thank you, God. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got Odyssey to Mind folks who may be joining us just a few minutes late, so we'll be on standby for them. But in the meantime, why don't we continue on with business? Madam Clerk, do you want to go ahead and read our written comments, summary of written
I
comments?
do. I think the kids are starting to join us, so they'll be in shortly. So for our written comments this evening regarding the FY24 budget, the Environmental Sustainability Council requested funding in the FY24 budget for implementing the government operations and the community energy action plans, and for an urban forestry crew leader, and they also supported continued funding for the Public Works Rapid Response Team. The Library Board supports the FY24 budget for the library and requested additional funding for 2 additional open hours for the library. For the East End Small Area Plan, the Viet Place Collective provided community demands regarding the proposed East End Small Area Plan. They requested that the plan center on anti-displacement principles, provide for Eden Center business owner and community support, increase free parking, designate the area as Little Saigon East, require infrastructure and community investment for any development, and hire Vietnamese artists for public art projects. Regarding the T-Zones proposal, Fred Thompson of 502 West Broad provided a copy of his comments from the April 24th City Council meeting, and John Williams wrote in support of the T-Zone proposal. We had several letters about traffic. Meredith Anderson requested pedestrian safety requested for pedestrian safety that the city make the walk signs on Broad automatic instead of having to press a button to cross. Henri Bartholomew provided correspondence with city staff regarding his concerns about the neighborhood traffic calming process. Dave Gustafson expressed concern about vehicles running stop signs and provided video of such and suggestions for improvements at the intersection of Great Falls Street and Maple Avenue. In other letters, Jay Blitzer expressed concern about towing practices in the city, and John Murphy of 308 Chestnut Street provided information regarding discharges into the Pearson branch, which were later addressed by the Public Works Director. And that was it.
All right, let's go on to the receipt of public comment. That's for folks either in the room or on the internet. Is there any speakers signed up?
I do. I have Ken Reed signed up to speak.
All right, welcome.
And if you can just state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much, Clerk. My name is Ken Reed, K-E-N-R-E-I-D, and I live in Tyson's on Trevanion Place. And I am the Republican. Oh, there we go. Hey, great. Now everybody can hear me. And I forgot to do that all these years. Okay. My name is Ken Reed. I live in Tysons, and I'm the Republican candidate for State Senate in the new District 37, which includes the city of Falls Church. And I'm just making the rounds around the district and want to introduce myself to you, and hopefully folks who are watching on the telecast tonight. My website is www.kenreed.org. And I want to wish Councilmember Duncan well in his recovery. I read that in the paper about a double lung replacement, and I'm very pleased that he's doing well, and I hope he will recover. Refuah Shlema is the Hebrew word for prayer for healing, so I offer my Refuah Shlema to him and his family. Ms. Gillette, your new city attorney, knows of me from my days serving on the Leesburg Town Council and Loudoun Board of Supervisors. I served 6 years on the Town Council and 4 on the Board of Supervisors, and while on the Board of Supervisors, I was the Loudoun rep to the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, so I worked with Mr. Snyder well, and I hope they speak well of me. David and I disagreed on a number of issues, but I think we disagreed without being disagreeable. And Sally, I hope you have found a nice home here, because was reading what was going on in Purcellville was really sad, really was. So I'm glad I hope that you found a nicer place here. I recognize I have a very uphill battle as a Republican running for state Senate in this very Democratic district, but if by some miracle, and Orthodox Jews believe in miracles, voters elect a Republican and represent them to go to Richmond, you can be sure that I am going to be giving my utmost attention to your needs in this city and your legislative agenda. As I noted, I served in elected office, and I'm very well aware of what happens when bills come out of left field without any consultation with the cities, the counties, and the towns. And I didn't like that very much. For example, I have now heard at least 2 Republican candidates for state Senate who are proposing to get rid of the personal property tax on vehicles, the car tax. Well, okay. You can do that, but what do you do to replace the money that the cities, the counties, and the towns are going to lose? That's the essential issue. So I would not support getting rid of the car tax at all. I don't know if you get a lot of funding from car tax in Falls Church, but a lot of cities, counties, and towns do. I've already called for revisions in the schedule for what city councils can pay themselves, because I think the schedule that's required under Virginia law is outdated. I'm sure maybe you all feel you're being paid appropriately, but there are some cities in Virginia which have just as much population as counties, and their mayors are capped at $28,000 a year, and yet county supervisors can raise it as much as they want. I think that's wrong. I think that needs to be revised. So that's just a couple of issues, and I hope to be discussing transportation and affordable housing in the campaign. Again, my website is kenreed.org. Thank you. God bless. Baruch Hashem.
Thank you so much. Best of luck. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay. So again, Odyssey of the Mind is coming. Not here yet, but we will make time for them when they do arrive. In the meantime, let's go on to the report of the city manager. Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter and members of council. I'd like to take time during the manager's report tonight just to brief the council and the community on the West Falls project. And specifically, there is a request from Hoffman Associates for an amendment to the comprehensive agreement. And I want to talk about that and brief the council on that issue. The slide that's up on the screen right now is the site plan that the City Council approved just over a year ago for the West Falls project. And almost exactly a year ago, the city and the City Economic Development Authority, after getting formal approvals from the City Council, signed the 99-year ground lease with the West Falls development team led by Hoffman Associates. This slide is taken from a community meeting that was held last week on Wednesday night that provides an update on construction activity. Anybody who's anywhere near the west end of the City of Falls Church right now can tell that there's a lot of activity happening there. Just in terms of completion dates that are currently scheduled, if you kind of start at the office building, which is on the lower, the blue building on the lower left side, that is scheduled to be the first building to open, scheduled for December of this year. The hotel is scheduled to be the second building to be opened, also scheduled to be ready for occupancy at the end of this year or early next year. If you could go back to that slide. I'm sorry, go back to the original slide. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. And then the condo building and the larger green building, which is in the lower right-hand side, those will take the longest time to get to completion, with those scheduled for later in 2024, early 2025 for completion. So the senior component is what is referred to as Phase 1B of the development. And that is the purple shaped property that is right next to the parking garage and between the parking garage with the name Bozzuto on it and the Commons. And so that is the phase of the project that had, under the original comprehensive agreement that was approved last year, they had until this time, they had 12 months to close with Trammell Crow, which went through the SE process with the City Council. It is clear at this point that due to the financing environment, that is not going to happen. And so Hoffman has asked for an extension of 12 months to close on the senior component. I'll note on this slide also the two gray areas, the one closest to Haycock Road and then the one that is in the Trapezoid parking lot. Those are the Phase 2 projects, which are slated to move forward and by 2029 at the latest. So the purple area is Phase 1B, and that's what we'll be talking about in terms of this requested extension. Next slide. So from this photograph, you can start to see the commons start to take shape from the build out of what the building that's on the left is the office building, and then the hotel is the building that is coming up in the middle, and then the condo is the building on the right. This picture is taken from one of the cranes that's being used to construct the larger multifamily building, which would be where the grocery store will be located on the ground floor along with other retail. All of these buildings will be lined with ground floor retail along the commons area. Next slide. And for the public's information, obviously the public is dealing with a great deal of construction in the right-of-way right now. That construction is related to moving of water lines. The city constructed the sewer lines about 2 years ago, so that work was completed. But we will also be now, Hoffman is undertaking the off-site improvements with the various different intersection improvements. And so a new signalized intersection will be constructed on Route 7 to be able to allow left turns in and out of the commons. That's something that's been very important to the city and to Fairfax County to spread some of the traffic through the site and ultimately through the Virginia Tech site and all the way to West Falls Metro. Then along Haycock Road, there'll be a new signal to allow access into the parking areas and into the grocery area. And then one that's very important to us is a new signal that will go in at Mustang Alley and Haycock Road. We have asked the developer to advance. Typically, the signals would be some of the last infrastructure that would go in after the buildings are complete. We've asked that they accelerate that. And the Mustang Alley, which right now is a very difficult road to travel, the pedestrian and bicycle track is open and is being used, which is an important step forward. But the road itself is in pretty rough condition. But that will be finished up over the summer. And the signal, which will allow for a controlled stop at Mustang Alley and Haycock Road, will not be finished by the start of school, but is anticipated to be up and running by November after the school year starts. So those are some things we ask the public to bear with us as we're undertaking all this construction. Obviously, the site will be lined with the streetscape that was approved by the City Council, and that will be some of the last work that goes in, and you'll really start to see the project take shape when we reach that phase. Next slide. So specific to the request for an amendment to the comprehensive agreement, that would, as I noted at the beginning, extend the closing date for Phase 1B, which is the senior component, by 12 months from the current approved date of June 13th, 2023 to June 13th, 2024, and then adjust some of the completion performance requirements that are in the comprehensive agreement to shift those dates accordingly. This is currently being reviewed by legal counsel. We're also doing a fiscal analysis of this. We don't have the results of that. We think that they will be relatively constrained. It'll have no impact at all on the lease payments that are being made to the city. And in terms of the tax yield, that is where it could have some impact, and we're going to measure that. However, the city did execute an economic development agreement with the EDA and with the developer that ramps up the property taxes for this project and abates them during the construction period. So we think that the impact on real estate taxes will be minimal because of that agreement. But there are other taxes, personal property taxes and other things like that, that would be delayed by a year for the senior component. So we'll want to just chart that out and analyze that. We anticipate that we'll have that staff work completed for council's review, and we're requesting that this be scheduled for council's consideration at your May 22nd regular meeting. So the purpose of tonight is just to discuss this publicly. Every step of this process, we've always done everything and get things out to the public as quickly as we can. The developer is continuing to hold neighborhood meetings on this project, and if anyone wants to be on the list to get notices of those meetings, you can go to westfallsva.com and sign up, and you'll be on the listserv for all announcements related to this project. The developer manages that website, and the developer also organizes those neighborhood meetings. That was one of the voluntary concessions they made as part of the City Council's approvals. With that, I will stop and see if there are any questions for council. And that's all I have to report tonight.
All right, let's go ahead and open it up to questions or comments from council. Ms. Leon?
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Regarding the request of extension by 12 months, was any rationale provided to you in the conversation of why 12 versus 8, 7, 6?
So one of the Hoffman is working very hard to get get things moving on this. They think it is possible that they will need an amendment to the special exception for the senior component that the council granted for this project. So they are building in some time for that review. I do think that it will be appropriate for the city to add some additional milestones and to really think through that schedule. The Schedule 1 should be geared towards success so that Hoffman can be successful in getting this moving, but also with some milestones so that the City Council, there's some touching points with the City Council so we can know that things are proceeding according to schedule. That's just some initial thought on that. And on the 22nd, the developer will be there also to discuss it, publicly with the council. And answer any questions directly.
So we can ask questions from the developer. That's good. Was there any additional insight provided as to why the senior component pulled out? Was it performance financially, or did they just change their mind, or any business reason?
I think it would be better for the developer to speak to that. They have met, but if I speak to it, I'll be sort of relaying secondhand information. I think those would be good questions to put directly to the developer.
Looking forward to talking to the developer then on May 22nd. Okay.
All right, other questions or comments from Mr. Shields? Vice Mayor Hardy?
Thank you. Well, you covered the first one I asked, which was going to be about milestones. I think it's a familiar term given that we've had some retrading in the past, and so I do think that's important to hold them accountable to show forward progress. So that's the first one. Building off Ms. Leon's question about reasons why the senior building pulled out, I guess as we consider another senior project that was just before us a couple weeks ago, I guess it would be interesting to understand if there's just market considerations, just so we understand the broader context of why this one may not be successful under Trammell Code in case it impacts the way we think about the Quinn and Homestretch project that we just talked about a couple weeks ago. So that would be a request maybe for staff to kind of get more information on. And then third, while we've got our school friends here, I know that as a parent of 2 kids in secondary, I know what a mess Mustang Alley and the whole Haycock intersection is. And so one of the ideas that had been floated is the idea of a temporary signal or any sort of thing that would help with pedestrian safety. And originally, since we thought the signal would be open by the beginning of the school year, now that it's getting pushed out another 3 or 4 months, whether we should consider that, because it will get dark again by kind of the October timeframe or so. And so if we're going to have 2 or 3 more months of that, I want to plan for that now, knowing that there might be some lead time to get those temporary signals up. So let's think about that proactively.
Thank you. I think it's a very good point.
Great. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
First, a comment. I want to follow up on Council Member Hardy's comments. I think it was a Northern Virginia Transportation Authority $15 million grant that provided for all the transportation improvements, and I'm glad to see that they're moving forward more rapidly. And I know if there's anything we can do to encourage the developer to move even more rapidly, because we want as safe an environment as possible. So if it's a temporary signal, if it's they can actually get some of these signals in more rapidly, whatever it takes, please let us know. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I think, is just to understand the financial ramifications of this change with some precision. You mentioned some of it's good news, but you also mentioned there may be some loss of projected revenue, so it would be important to know what that is and be able to negotiate with the developer for at least a replacement, if not more. So, thank you.
All right, other comments? I would just echo that as well. I know we've spoken previous to this, but I do think holding their feet to the fire, coming in with a shorter time frame, and then, if justified, extending it, but starting smaller and then working larger. Also, I know we've got a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes, that runs a certain number of years, but I don't know if this somehow bounces off the back end of that, but I want to make sure we're not losing any tax revenue by agreeing to an extension. And so that would be something that I think is particularly important to find out. And I do think if there are certain things that we want to see, for example, a stoplight installation accelerated, this might be a good time to ask for it in consideration for delays and other things as well. Anyway, that's all I've got. And this is the extent of your report. Let me just ask, are the Odyssey of the Mind folks here? I know I see one of the children in the back. So why don't we bring them in and go on? We'll go on to council requests as soon as we're done with the Odyssey of the Mind folks. All right, here they come. Here comes trouble. You guys want to come down front? And the big kids too, you can come as well. So tell us what's going on. Tell us where you're headed. I heard you got good news. You bring good tidings.
Hi. We're going to Michigan, and we're doing it for Odyssey of the Mind. And there's a spontaneous and a long-term problem. So the spontaneous is either a hands-on or a vocal problem, but we can't tell you anything about it because it's a secret, and we don't want anyone telling about it.
No one will hear here. It's just
Don't do it.
It's just us.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Don't tell us. Don't tell anything. I'm just kidding.
So then there's a long-term problem, which we're doing The Walls of Troy, and ours is a play. What we have to do for the Walls of Troy is we have to come up with a problem, like a wall basically. It could be like war, starvation, stage fright, or something like that. And we have to overcome it by, if you've ever read the Iliad, a god from the Iliad, and a Trojan horse, which was in a statue. The Trojan horse needs to open up and help the character overcome stage fright.
You have to make all your props by yourself, and you can't have any help from other people, and then you do the long-term problem.
We're the team. We are from Oak Street Elementary School, and we're in 4th and 3rd grade, and we're 9 or 10. And I don't know.
All right. Is that it? Or you got more?
I think that might be it.
Nathan,
I think that's it.
You think that's it? Well, you guys did a fantastic job, and we are so proud of you. You're heading to the Worlds, right? All right.
Nathan, you never got to.
Yeah, let's go. How about tell us each of your names and maybe what grade you're in?
So I'm Nathan. I'm in 4th grade.
Okay.
I'm James, and I'm in 3rd grade. I'm Julia, and I'm also in 3rd grade, and I'm in James's class. I'm Caitlin, and I'm in 4th grade.
I'm Annie, and I'm in 4th grade.
All right, you guys did such a great job. We are so proud of you. Worlds, you're heading to the Worlds, and your parents are going with you, right? Yeah. Who's chaperoning your parents, though? They are. They are. Okay, that's right. Well, why don't you guys come down for a photo? How about that? We can give you our congratulations and some pins.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, come on, it's a seat.
Yeah, you
All right. Yeah, pretty good up here. All right, keep us posted, okay? We want to know how you guys do up there. And keep your parents in line. I got some concerns about them, so. Yeah. All right. Good luck. Fare thee well.
Very excited. Thanks for coming. Let us know how it goes, okay?
All right. So now let's go on to council requests. Are there any council requests for the city manager? Mrs. Connolly?
Thanks, Mayor Charter. Mr. Shields, I just have some concerns about vandalism and graffiti in the city. And it seems like around Tinner Hill on Maple Avenue, even in front of the Harris Teeter, there's a lot of graffiti. And as I've been walking, I've been taking pictures. I sent some to you, and then I have more. Mrs. Henderson, who lives on Maple Avenue, pointed out some around her house. There's some in the area where murals are supposed to be going, and I'm just wondering if the city can do a better job at abating that graffiti, because there's a lot of it. It looks like tagging, and I feel like that's the kind of thing we need to nip in the bud immediately.
And I'll just say briefly, graffiti that's on public infrastructure, the city has the responsibility to remove it. And then graffiti that's on private property, we contact the property owner, and there's for both the public and the private, under code, there's a time period by which it should be removed. And so we will work through our processes for the public infrastructure and then communication with private property owners as well.
And what is the time period that it's
I don't
supposed to be
recall.
removed?
I believe it's like 3 weeks.
Oh, we're way past 3
Yeah,
weeks
I know.
at this point.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
All right, other comments from Mr. Shields? Ms. Hardy?
My not-so-favorite topic is traffic signals. So in light of our budget discussion later on about funding additional infrastructure money for signals, I wanted the latest on the Lincoln and Great Falls light in case you have an update. And then in response to one of the public comments we've received about how do we make our pedestrian experience safer by having the walk signals automatic instead of being triggered, if that's something that would be in scope with additional funding to upgrade our infrastructure lights.
It would be. So let me just say that. But our process is to follow the kind of the traffic engineers. There's a process we go through for that balances the different users of an intersection. For the signal at Great Falls and Lincoln, we are working through the technical possibility of moving equipment within the city to that intersection. We have our contractor is working through to make sure to see if that will be feasible. If it is feasible, then we would be able to get that intersection back to normal cycling within a matter of weeks. If it's not possible, we have already put in the order for a new cabinet at that intersection, and the delivery schedule for those is about 3 months. We put in that order about a month ago, and so we're still 60 days out for the new cabinet solution. So that signal is going to continue to operate on flash mode, I think for a minimum of a month, sort of in the best case scenario, and possibly longer.
Going back to the automated walk signals, if we can't do automated walk signals at our busiest ones, I guess I would advocate, and as I've done in the past, for LPIs. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I responded, I was referring to LPIs. and you were asking a different question about automatic pedestrian signalization.
I
Yes.
think both, I guess, should be under consideration, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
And while you're, let me just provide one piece of good news. Well, not good news. The intersection at Fairfax and Broad Street, the geometry of that intersection has been studied by our new traffic engineer. He's recommending some changes to that street that we could be able to implement pretty quickly. We're going to talk tonight about the rapid response team. We want to try to get on top of this project sooner than the hiring process for those new positions with existing staff or with a contractor to improve the pedestrian safety of the intersection of Fairfax and Broad Street.
It's great, because I know we had a pedestrian accident there, and I'm on that intersection probably 3 times a week, and so I'm pretty worried about it myself, so thank you.
All right, other requests? If not, let's move on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk? Will you call, actually, all the items together?
Sure. First, we have TO 23-03, ordinance fixing and determining the budget of expenditures and revenues and appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2024, general fund, school operating fund, school community service fund, school food service fund, cable access fund, sewer fund, stormwater fund, and capital improvement program funds, and adopting the FY 2024 to FY 2029 capital improvement program. We have TO 23-04, ordinance setting the rate of tax levy on real estate for tax year 2024 and personal property, machinery and tools, and all other property segregated by law for local taxation in the City of Falls Church for tax year 2023. We have TO 23-05, ordinance to amend, reenact, and recodify Chapter 42, Utilities, to revise sewer rates and fees as of July 1, 2023. TO 23-06, ordinance to set the stormwater utility billing unit rate in accordance with Chapter 42, Article 7 of the Code of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, as of July 1, 2023. And finally, we have TO 23-09, ordinance to amend, reenact, and recodify Chapter 15, Fees, Article 3, Department of Public Works, and Article 4, Department of Public Safety of the Code of the City of Falls Church to update and revise certain fees effective July 1, 2023.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Ms. Conley if she'd like to read any sort of disclosure statement.
I make the following statement before City Council's discussion of the FY 2024 budget. I am an employee of the Falls Church City School Board and a member of a group of 3 or more persons who may be affected by these matters. I can participate in them fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
I also wish to make a statement. I make the following statement before City Council's consideration of the FY 2024 budget. My wife's an employee of the Falls Church City School Board. Therefore, I'm a member of a group of 3 or more persons who may be affected by these matters. However, I can participate in them fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Mr. Shields, do you want to go ahead and start our presentation?
Sure. I've got just a few slides to walk through in terms of our wrap-up, our final public hearing and final consideration of the proposed FY24 budget. And before I get started, I want to just thank a few people. I want to acknowledge our school superintendent, Peter Noonan, is here tonight, and our chair of the school board, Ms. Downs, is here as well. Our finance director, Kieran Bawa, Cindy Mester puts together our CIP. And communicating the budget is always the top job of this time of the year. And I want to thank Susan Finarelli and Maggie Redden for your work in helping us communicate the budget out. We did have a number of town hall meetings. We had ads placed in our local newspaper, the Falls Church News Press, all geared to try to inform and solicit feedback on this budget. Next slide, please. So this is the summary chart that the council saw at the beginning of the presentation back on March 27th when the budget was presented. And the one change to the budget that is showing up in these numbers is the increase in the pay-as-you-go in the use of capital reserves. Overall, the budget will be growing by 5.6%, and I'll talk through some of the council changes in the next slide. But the core numbers of the budget of a 5.25% growth and for both the general government and school transfer remains the same. And all other aspects of this budget, other than the use of capital reserves for capital maintenance expenditures in our streets and our sidewalks, is unchanged in this chart. Next slide. So in terms of changes that the council has before you after hearing a lot of public comment on the budget and a lot of council discussion at work sessions. The council would be deploying the council contingency to moving forward on environmental sustainability initiatives, and specifically to purchase electricity from renewable sources. We currently purchase a portion of our city electricity through RECs with Dominion, and this would allow us to go to 100% RECs, as well as purchase software so that we can continue to measure our carbon emissions in-house going forward, as opposed to hiring consultants for that. We've had a lot of volunteer effort through the years, Tim Stevens and many others who have helped us with these annual audits or every 5-year audits of our carbon emissions, and this software will be very helpful in being able to continue that going forward. And in addition, the council would put some of its council contingency towards Watch Night and our Independence Day celebrations. As I noted before, the biggest change to the budget is using $800,000 from capital reserves to invest in street paving, traffic signals, and sidewalks. And so with that $800,000, the total for maintenance of our streets and sidewalks would go to $1,640,000, with the largest share of that going to street paving. And when we pave, that's when we included in that is pedestrian crossings, the zebra stripes, bike facilities, and all other things that are indicated in our planning documents for improvements in the street when we pave. In addition, when we pave streets, we now have the practice of bringing any ADA non-compliant sidewalk ramps. We bring those into compliance when we pave as well. Traffic signals, as we have discussed earlier, we've been struggling with a number of our aged traffic signals, so this is to reinvest with new equipment for those. And then maintenance of our sidewalks is something that we hear from our residents frequently about making improvements there. So this would be inclusive of both our concrete sidewalks that are throughout the city, as well as our brick paver sidewalks that are predominant in our commercial districts. Next slide. So with the budget, the core things that were in the budget, I just want to hit some of the highlights that the council discussed throughout the budget process. One, we do sustain our school system with this. This budget is now our 4th budget in a row of adhering to the principles of revenue sharing, and that is I think a really important thing for adding predictability and good planning to our budgeting process. The budget upholds excellent government services, so some of the things that are in this budget include investment in our workforce with a compensation increase of 6% for employees that will allow us to remain competitive as an employer in a very competitive marketplace. We have a school resource officer in this budget that in the current year is being largely funded with a federal grant. That's now shifting to local support, and that's in the budget. We're shifting to camera enforcement of speed cameras on West Broad Street, as well as expanding a photo red intersection in the city for traffic safety. We're funding mental health support for our police department, and we're doing that in a very innovative way, working with with Dr. Bracey, who is our clinical therapist with the Aurora House, and she will be working with our police department and our dispatchers when we're responding to calls that present as a mental health issue. We have money in the budget for a fire inspector. We currently have one fire inspector for the whole city. We'll increase that by a 0.75 FTO, a part-time position to assist the fire inspector with our annual commercial fire inspections across the city, and to help manage all the construction that is going on in the city, an additional right-of-way manager that will be paid for with fees paid by developers. The budget funds a transportation rapid response team that was first initiated in a mid-year budget amendment earlier this year, but this budget carries that forward so that we can respond more quickly to resident requests for safety improvements on our streets. The budget provides money for affordable housing in the amount of $120,000, a portion of which will be used to hit targets for area and median income that are lower than our typical affordable housing projects. We'll be targeting 40% AMI to try to broaden accessibility to housing in the city. The budget funds a grant administrator to help us take advantage of many of the new state and federal grants that are currently being administered. We've been very successful in bringing those grant dollars to the city, but this budget will help us manage that better. And the last two things to note, the budget sustains $200,000 a year in funding for the neighborhood traffic calming program. The council has had that built into the budget for several years in a row now, and it sustains that. And then the budget expands our library hours by 2 hours on the weekends, and to provide the service that our patrons have been asking for there. So that's a summary of some of the highlights in the budget, and I'll hit just a few other points. The budget does draw on capital reserves. We had a work session on that last week, and with that drawdown on capital reserves, we are still well within our policy requirements for maintaining available fund balance to deal with contingencies or emergencies as they might come up in the future. Next slide, please. The CIP is a transformative CIP, and we've been very successful in bringing grant dollars to the city. The CIP, just in terms of broad numbers, over the 6-year period allocates $92 million for transportation improvements, most of those geared towards pedestrian, cyclists, and intersection improvements throughout the city to make the city more walkable. We have $26 million investment in facilities, fleet, and parks, and one notable project is the Oak Street Elementary School front entrance project that is in the CIP. We will note that with the Virginia General Assembly has not yet settled on a budget, and we did have $4 million in the Senate bill that was going through that process, and so that is something that is an unknown at this point in the budget process. I think those are some of the highlights, but in terms of that $154 million overall CIP, $91 million of that is funded through grants that we're bringing to the city. And that's a big effort. The City Council has been very active in helping us get those grants, and staff has been working very hard as well. Next slide. Just a note on tax rates and then fees. The real estate tax rate is unchanged in this proposed budget and in the ordinance that's before you tonight. The vehicle tax does have an increase to a rate of $4.80. Last year, the City Council lowered that rate by 70 cents, and this would put some of those cents back into the tax rate. But assessed values for vehicles are now dropping very sharply, as we predicted that they would after the supply chain related disruptions that caused prices to go up so sharply in the last 2 years. And so for the average car owner, there would be a decrease in the bill paid relative to last year. Next slide. In In terms of fees, we do, and the sanitary sewer rate is proposed at a 3% increase, and that ordinance is before council. The stormwater fee also would be about a 4% increase, and the impact on average homeowners is listed in the slides. There's a right-of-way fee and a commercial fire inspection fee, and those would go directly for those services to manage our right-of-way and to conduct commercial fire inspections, and those are typically paid for by developers and by commercial property owners. Next slide. So through this is our last slide in this presentation, but the City Council received this proposed budget in late March, and since that time, we've had this will be our third public hearing, and we've also had 2 budget town halls to get public comment on this budget, and it's now before council for your final public hearing and final consideration. Be happy to answer any questions for council, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this budget, as the council has asked many questions and done a lot of analysis and due diligence on these budget proposals.
All right, well, thank you very much, and we certainly appreciate your and staff's hard work, and our friends at the school board and the school system as well, putting this together in a collaborative and cooperative way so that we all succeed and we all win with this budget. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Shields? I'd say before we get that, I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing up, or open the hearing up. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Let's go to council comments or questions. All right, this might be a short hearing tonight. Let's another record. Mr. Snyder.
Sure. First of all, I want to recognize the significant contributions of Councilmember Phil Duncan, who right up till it was absolutely impossible, participated in our budget deliberations and added a great deal. So we all wish him well. And I first of all wanted to recognize his ongoing, very substantial contributions to the benefit of the city. A couple points, and I may go back to a couple of these depending on the discussion, but I think this budget reflects our values in virtually every key area, whether it be affordable housing or transportation, schools, and I think it reflects a very, very good balance. I was a little bit concerned about the use of capital reserves, but have been advised that, in fact, it's entirely consistent with our policies. We continue to have significant reserves, and what we're using those reserves for is not traditionally operating expenses, but rather for streets and sidewalks and other key elements of infrastructure. Councilmember Duncan asked if we could lower the tax rate, and we all want to do that. I think the issue was that cuts would have to be made, and they couldn't really be identified without affecting major priorities. In addition, and this is something I hope we can correct in the future, that very soon we'll be told about underspending in the current fiscal year, and it would have been very good to have that information because it might have enabled some modifications of the decisions that we had to make, including the tax rate. But that is what it is, and we don't have that data, and so relying on what might be is probably not the best approach. So I think it's a good budget. I wholeheartedly support it. I recognize that I'd love to do more in areas like transportation, public safety, affordable housing, and on and on and on. But the reality is we're doing a lot, and we much appreciate all the contribution of everyone who's played a role in this. Certainly staff, city and schools, the elected officials, and everyone engaged in the public helping us put this budget together. Thanks.
All right, other comments or questions? Ms. Hiscott.
Just a couple comments to add on to Mr. Snyder's as well, that this budget is really responsible and responsive. It's addressing in some way, shape, or form every topic that we've discussed over the past year, I hope that our business development continues along with its projections, and we'll be able to, whether it's next year or the year after, when we really see those tax revenues increase, we'll have an opportunity to have the Phil Duncan tax reduction metric based upon those revenues. We're just a little premature in doing that at this moment in time, but know that that is something we're all striving for and looking forward to handling as well. I'm very proud that we are addressing both the general government and school staff pay through a lot of work from each of those staffs, looking into our regional pay equity and, putting us forth as a great place to work and a great place to do business. So I just wanted to also be in full support. I think it's responsible to use these capital reserves. We might have an opportunity very soon to be replacing those reserves, or at least reviewing our expenditures to see how we are catching up on making sure that our core infrastructure isn't left behind. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments that folks would like to make? Questions? Ms. Conley?
I'd just like to say thank you to all the staff and community members who were involved in this. You answered a lot of questions, Ms. Bawa, and walked us through a lot of things. It has been wonderful to work with my colleagues who have also asked wonderful questions to really get to the nugget of what matters to the people of Falls Church. So as others have said, this really reflects the priorities of the city. So as I like to do, I just want to go back a little bit in history, because when I got home after the budget markup last week, my husband said to me, "So how'd it go?" And I was like, "That was a great meeting." And he looked at me as if that was a great meeting. Like, that was a really great meeting. And the reason it was such a great meeting was because we were actually wrestling with the important things about what's going on and what we want to see happen in the future of Falls Church. So I appreciate all of that and all of you for that reason. But if we back up, when I first ran for office, one of the questions people asked me was, "So what would you like to do differently?" And I said, "Oh, I'd like to have a revenue sharing agreement." And all the people that were listening laughed at me and said, "That is never going to happen." And sure enough, it has happened. And it has happened because of the perseverance of everyone in this room, because of our school board and school staff partners. And it has made a huge difference because it makes things predictable. It helps us be able to balance things so that we don't have people coming and on this last meeting after we do Public Service Recognition Week, asking for us to give more money to different places. And that happened a few times over the course of my time serving. So I really just feel like we have come such a long way in the last 15 years in so many areas, but budgeting and planning and working together, collaborating really helps. Last year, Ms. Leon was new to council, and there were many new school board members, and they brought their expertise and their questions and challenged us to make that revenue sharing agreement better. So I feel like next year it's just going to keep getting better and better. So I thank everyone for that, and my husband also thanks you that I'm not coming home sick to my stomach, but things are working well.
All right, good to hear. Other, Ms. Leon?
Yes, and I just wanted the public to know, in addition to the thank yous, for those, I want the public to be aware that there are unfunded needs that we are tracking, and that we have intention to monitor that closely as, excess revenues and revenue results are reported as we close out the end of the fiscal year and take a look at that. Our position, we have not forgotten those unfunded needs, and we will be looking to see what we can do to support those items that we just couldn't include through this second reading. So know that that is still on the radar, and we're looking to make sure that we cover those as we move through time fairly quickly without making, folks wait until the next cycle. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Okay. Look, I guess this is going to be a quick meeting. I want to just again thank everyone. It has been so much nicer process than it was many, many years ago, and I think working together, we've accomplished some great things. We got a new high school, and we've got some great economic development that's going to pay dividends for years and years to come. We're just getting started with some of these projects. West End project hasn't even opened yet. Whole Foods is under construction. Our movie theater is set to open this coming summer. So there's a lot on the horizon I think is very exciting and very helpful to the city and to continue the great work we've done to date. So I'm delighted to support this budget, and I thank all those who've worked so hard to get us where we are today. Let's go ahead and take a motion then, maybe, unless there's anything else anybody wants to say. Would someone like to move the first item? Go ahead, somebody.
I move to adopt TO 23-03.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Was that Ms. Leon on the
Yes, it
second?
was.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Next.
Move to adopt TO 23-04.
Second.
Ms. Conley on the second. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Keep going.
Motion to adopt TO 23-05.
Second.
Ms. Hiscott on the second. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, next up.
Motion to adopt TO 23-06.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. I think there's one more.
Next one.
Move to adopt TO 23-09.
Second.
Ms. Conley on the second. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our school friends for coming. You're welcome to stick around, but not much to do after this. But let's go on to consent items. There are none. Business not on the agenda. Any standing regional committees, Mr. Snyder?
I did have just one item. I wanted to recognize the work of the Crossman Methodist Church in sponsoring a volunteer effort that led to 8,000 meals being packed and sent overseas to people. And it's a classic example of the Best of Falls Church with our faith community volunteers. And it's just a wonderful event, and one among, frankly, things that go on here on a daily basis, how we're not only showing leadership in the region and the country, but in the world. So it was a deeply moving experience, and I want to thank everybody involved in that. Let's see. I think that's it. I think that's it for, one other thing. I wanted to just note the very interesting and engaging conversation that was co-sponsored by a number of our organizations yesterday. And I think the really great thing is this budget, I think, reflects a lot of the values, if not all the values, that were discussed yesterday. So it's really great to see the energy and the enthusiasm behind moving our city into the future. And I want to thank everybody involved, especially Councilmember Hardy, who's deeply involved in that effort. So thank you.
All right, other comments, Ms. Conley?
I should have asked this earlier, Mr. Shields, but we had a letter from someone who was concerned about towing. We haven't had towing letters or problems in a while, maybe since pre-pandemic, but I'm just wondering who's responding to that person to let them know that the towing is the shopping center owner's situation. There have been times in recent years, long ago years, when there was a lot of towing going on, and it seemed like the signs went up and people got the message, and now there's a bit more towing that I've heard of.
I do recall seeing that. I will make sure that a response is made to the resident who wrote in on that.
That's great. I wonder if that should be somewhere on our website, just explaining towing or the city's policy on towing, or when towing happens from a private lot,
will check. I think there
It may
is
be.
information on there. That was, as you recall.
Right. It was a big
something
deal.
that we spent a lot of time on. So let me check on that as well.
Ms. Hiscott?
I also wanted to thank Ms. Hardy, in addition to the Falls Church Forward meeting yesterday, working to arrange the tour of the Eden Center that several of us were able to go on yesterday to really meet some of the business owners, enjoy their food and their flowers and baked goods and tofu and on and on and on. It was a really great event. It was something they hope to do more of as well for the balance of the community. And it was just amazing. I'm often talking about how we have plenty of parking and I never have trouble parking. Well, Sunday afternoon at the Eden Center is a different story. It was jam-packed. So it was really a great opportunity to spend some time with one of our biggest business districts. So thank you for that, and to all those at the Eden Center and staff who helped coordinate all of that. And I highly recommend it to the next group of folks who have an opportunity to do so.
All right, thank you. Other comments? Ms. Hardy?
Thank you. It's almost summer, which means almost season for employee reviews. So message to all my colleagues that GovOps will start up in the next month or so, unless I hear any concerns. I think the 360 process was pretty effective last year and a new way to get feedback on our employees. And so I'll ask for our 3 employees to provide 360 providers again, and then I'll send out an email about the process, so on how you all can participate. Thank you.
All right. Anything, Mr. Snyder?
I did have one other thing. This is in regard to the stop signs at Great Falls and Maple. A neighbor of mine did a video. They have their camera set up, and they did a video, and it's just astounding, the amount of violations that occurred. And the city did respond with some added enforcement and place some additional signs. Regrettably, this is probably the kind of thing you could video at virtually every stop sign in the city. So that accounts for our continued focus on this effort, and call upon everyone in the community to help us document these issues and help us prioritize, and then and support us when we ask for additional resources for law enforcement in this area. So thanks.
All right. Anything else? Let's move on to minutes. In honor of Phil Duncan, I don't know who's going to do these today, but is there someone who would like to make a motion regarding the minutes or have any corrections?
I can make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings,
All right.
June 27th, November 14th, February 13th, February 27th.
Can we do these
March.
separately?
You can do them together.
We can
Okay,
do
that's
them
fine.
together,
All
I
right,
think.
let's do it. Did you make
So
the
I made the
motion?
motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
All right. Yes,
Motion
indeed.
There
carries.
may be a
6-0.
missed period we might have not caught that Phil would have caught, so I
Phil will
apologize.
read them
We'll
soon.
give him something
He's
to,
assured me he'll be back
Okay.
That's right.
in the saddle reading minutes again.
All right, well, we wish Phil the best. In honor of him, we've just approved the minutes. Is there anything else anybody wants to say before we adjourn? It's a world record for a budget hearing. So, all right, let's do it. Let's adjourn our meeting. Good evening, everyone. Let's have a great night.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, council.
Hey, Dave, do you have 2 minutes?
Yeah.
I just want to go over a couple things on the way back, so.
Can you and I